And we are officially now just 1 week away from the all-important midterm elections, and depending on the race, polls are incredibly tight.
Yeah, while the GOP is widely favored to regain the House, it's still anyone's game in terms of the Senate. Will the GOP be able to win that or to balance or gain balance of power back there in the Senate? 7 days to go, we'll find out. Sean Spicer is the host of Spicer and Company, served as former White House press secretary under President Donald Trump. Good to see you, Sean. Thanks so much for coming on here. So Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, let's start with that if we can. A highly contentious race there, as you know, between Dr. Oz and Democratic nominee and Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. And if you look at the poll, the latest Insider Advantage poll, it's now showing Oz leading for the first time against Fetterman, 48% to 45%. We know President Obama came out and he stumped for Fetterman after what some call a dismal debate performance. So your thoughts here, does Fetterman get carried over the finish line with his support from the former President Barack Obama? Does Oz hold this lead? What is your prediction in the Keystone State?
Look, I think Pennsylvania is a hotly divided state. And it was funny, during that debate, one of the moderators read out, said, well, if the election for president were held today, Donald Trump would win 46-45. I think that's pretty much where the state lies right now in terms of its Senate race. I think Oz will win by a point to 2. The momentum is with him. I think the debate, to the extent that anybody really cared, didn't bode well for Fetterman. But I think pretty much the battle lines have been drawn in Pennsylvania. People have already cast their ballots or made up their minds. And I think that the edge goes right now to Dr. Oz, but not by much.
Let's take you to Georgia, because we remember what happened in the Peach State, where the GOP lost those 2 seats. So a big question is what's going to happen with this Walker-Warnock race. According to this poll, Walker is ahead by 1 percentage point here, but it just varies, as you know, Sean, based on which poll you're looking at. How do you think Georgia's going to go?
It's an interesting question, Emma. Of all the races, the one that if you think about all these battleground states, the one race where, I mean, in terms of the scandal and the controversy, it's all on the Republican side, which it shouldn't be, frankly. Warnock has a ton of baggage in terms of the rental controversy of the church that he oversees, his previous issues with his wife, the scandals that involve that. But frankly, the media has paid attention to Herschel Walker. Despite all that, Herschel Walker's ahead of the polls. The issue in Georgia isn't that. This is not a simple majority or a plurality, rather, that you need in Georgia like you do in almost every other state. Georgia, you need to get to that 50%. You've got a third party running in there. My guess is Georgia, Herschel will win, quote unquote, on election night, but it'll be forced to a runoff. And the thing that's going to be interesting, and this is where I think people have to understand, if Republicans get 51, 52 seats on election night, it's going to be harder anyway, to get people to go back out again in December and say, please vote again for Herschel Walker, knowing that Republicans have already captured the majority. Now, if it's tied 50-50 and it's that crucial seat that puts him over the top and keeps that Biden agenda from moving forward in the Senate, then there's no question in my mind that Herschel Walker prevails again. But I think he does win on Election Day. The runoff is going to be largely determined by how well Republicans do on Election Day.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of those the sleeper candidates, if you will, some that could provide upsets. One of those could have been in Arizona, which, you know, the independent candidate dropped out recently and then endorsed Blake Masters there in his run against Mark Kelly. What does that mean for the race there in Arizona now?
You know, it's interesting. Of all the races, you know, that are on that battleground map, if there's one that's going to concern me, it's this race. Blake Masters has been behind the entire time, and he shouldn't be. Arizona is a mess. The immigration issue is front and center. People in Arizona don't need to get told how bad immigration is right now and how bad the Biden administration has let people down and had an open borders policy. They see it. They live it every single day in Arizona. It's not just the economy and crime. It's immigration in a very, very personal way there. So the Masters campaign hasn't raised the money they should. They haven't put the campaign together that they should have. Mark Kelly hasn't run the greatest campaign in the world. But what troubles me is that Masters has not put this race away in the way that he should. He's been largely hoping and waiting on outside super PACs, particularly the one by Peter Thiel, to come in and rescue his campaign. That was the case in the primary, and that's what they're waiting on in the general election. I think that they're going to pull this thing out, but it's going to be by the skin of their teeth, and it's going to be largely because Kari Lake is running well ahead, I think, enough, at least for governor. She's got a good grassroots effort going on. Sure. She's going to probably, ironically, pull Blake Masters over the top by the skin of his teeth.
There you go. If you can get people out to vote for one candidate, maybe they would continue doing so down the ballot. Sean, we wanted to get your thoughts on Nevada, but we're out of time. That's okay, though, for our viewers. Of course, you can watch Sean Spicer.
That one, I'll tell you what, I'll keep it easy.
Yeah.
That one, Adam Laxalt's, that one he's going to win.
All right, there we go. Bold prediction there. Of course, more predictions like that on Spicer & Co. with Sean Spicer and Lindsay Keith. It airs weekdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. Our great thanks to Sean Spicer for taking time this morning.